Is the Secretary General of the South African Federation of Trade Unions, Zwelinzima Vavi. Mr. Vavi, very good evening to you and welcome to SABC News.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for having us.
All right. I guess you can now confirm that the strike is definitely on this coming Wednesday.
The strike is definitely on the 25th, which is Wednesday. We've done our work and we've popularized the demands workers are making. The strike is receiving widespread support from workers in respective of the categories where they are employed. We expect millions of workers to back our one-day strike. It's a fully protected strike. Every worker, whether they are whether they are members of SAFTU or any other union or not even a member of any union, are fully protected. They can participate in the strike. No employer can take any decision against them to victimize or to make them pay for backing the demands that we are putting forward, unless you are part of the essential services as declared by a bargaining council where you are employed, or you are part of the maintenance services. But if you're not falling part of those two categories, you are protected, and we call on workers back your strike action. We believe that this strike action on Wednesday is perhaps the most important strike we've ever had as unions since the dawn of democracy, because it's a strike about protecting the constitutionally guaranteed right of workers to strike. The amendments that have been signed in deadlocked by business, government, and the unions that have been captured represent the most fatal or fatal attack on the rights of workers to strike. It's going to take it away. It's going to make it almost impossible for any strike to be ever protected in line with the law. They want to secretly ballot members. They want to introduce balloting rules that which you cannot go on strike unless they have been signed off by the commissioner. They want to extend the period of conciliation by 5 more days to make it 35 days. And they want to introduce something they call the advisory arbitration, which if you do not engage with what they say following a complaint by any employer or any member of the public to the CCMA that the strike is taking too long and or it is having a huge impact on the firm or the economy, that commission can rule the strike unprotected. We think that
but it does appear that the rights of the millions of South Africans, that's the commuters, are not being addressed here.
There are separate issues. There's a strike right now of bus drivers, and you have to agree that their demands are legitimate. They're earning peanuts if you compare to the critical role that they play in propelling and in giving oil and into turning the wheels of this economy. And that's why we're calling on all of the passengers. Please understand that this is a battle that has to be fought and that has to be won with their backing. We know that they are hugely inconvenienced at this particular point, but we're calling on them to continue to make alternative means. I mean, where do you get this? These employers want to continue to act outside the law. We're saying that at least respect the basic conditions of Employment Act. For example, the night shift must start at 6 o'clock until 6 o'clock the next day. That's what the basic conditions of Employment Act prescribe. We're saying that when a worker goes many days away from home, and it has to be that that worker is properly remunerated. This thing that when you are off the wheel, you are not given overtime on the basis that you are off, even though you are still in the bus in the middle of nowhere in any part of the country, is something that mustn't be tolerated going forward.
Okay. Quickly outline the issues
the subsistence allowance of 500 rand to given to workers away from home to sleep in the places of their choice. Tell me which hotel cost 500 rands. What can you eat from 500 rands in a night in any part of the Republic? So the demands that the bus drivers are pushing are absolutely legitimate. We're calling on the operators, the owners of these bus companies. The unions have come down 3%. They're saying that if you come with an offer of the that will match their 9%, the strike is over tomorrow.
What are some of the demands which are in contention here?
That is the rate of pay. We've asked for 12%, we've now revised it to 9%, and these employers are refusing to move substantially from their 7.5%. That's the first issue. The second issue, we think that the issue of basic conditions of employment is absolutely important. They want to continue to reward overtime based on their own hours from their heads, from 9 o'clock in the evening to 3 o'clock in the morning. The Basic Conditions of Employment Act says overtime or night shift allowance starts from 6 o'clock in the evening right until 6 o'clock in the morning. They are refusing to do so. They are refusing to increase the subsistence allowance. Currently, as I was saying, is 500 rands a night. Who can sleep in what hotel or with a 500 rands or so of allowance? We're asking them to be serious. Workers mustn't be pushed into brothels or into the shacks where they are referred to into workers in order to survive over a period of 24 hours away from their families.
You'll also be addressing the issue of the VAT increase. Unfortunately, we don't have much time, but briefly, some economic pundits do say that reliance on indirect taxes, of course, raises large amounts of revenue with small increases in rates due to economic stability and efficiency.
That's a part of the problem. The reason why South Africa have become the most unequal society in the world is because this government have consistently been shifting the tax burden away from those who can afford to pay. They have been decreasing the corporate taxes from companies, from personal income earners who are earning millions and millions, have been shifting it to the shoulders of the most vulnerable, the poor. The VAT increase that came into effect on the 1st of April is actually an assault on the living standards of the poor. Don't look at it only the VAT. They've introduced a sugar tax. They've increased the fuel tax. Okay. They've increased they've introduced a new sugar tax. They've increased all of the so-called sin taxes. All of these taxes impact more on the most marginalized, the poorest sections of the population of this country. Okay. But they won't touch corporate taxes and they won't touch the personal income taxes, even though we know that some of these bosses earn as high as 152 million rands in 1 year. They are not being touched. Okay. The vulnerable, the workers are being made to pay for the mistakes that they did not commit, but that were committed by the political elites in our country.
All right. Mr. Vavi, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you very much.
Zwelinzima Vavi, the Secretary General of the South African Federation of Trade Unions.